Okay, picture this. You're looking up at the night sky, that huge, dark canvas full of stars that have been there forever. Now, what if one of those stars just blinked out of existence? Not a flicker, not an explosion, it just vanished. Today, we're jumping headfirst into a real-life scientific detective story that starts with that exact premise. We're going to unravel the mystery of these vanishing stars, and trust me, the answer is way stranger than you might think.
And our whole story kicks off right here, not with some fancy modern satellite, but with this, an old photographic plate from the 1950s. It's like a ghost captured in glass, a single snapshot of the sky taken before we'd even launched a single thing into space. And hiding in there is a clue that might just rewrite the history of who or what was up there.
Because that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? These ancient photos seem to show stars that are there 1 minute and then completely gone just a few minutes later. Now, that's not supposed to happen. Stars don't just disappear. So what are these celestial ghosts, and what are they trying to tell us?
All right, to crack this case, we have to go back to the source. We need to understand where these clues even came from, back to a time before digital cameras, when astronomy was a totally different ballgame. Yeah, before Sputnik blasted off in 1957 and kicked off the space age, our map of the universe was being recorded on these huge, fragile glass negatives. Each one was a long-exposure photograph, a moment of the heavens frozen in time, meant to be permanent and unchanging. The first people to realize something was off were a team with the VASCO Project. They were painstakingly comparing these old plates from the Palomar Observatory when they started finding them dozens of weird anomalies. They called them vanishing and appearing sources, or what astronomers just call transients. Basically, anything that changes brightness really fast. It was an incredible discovery for sure, but it's one that really needed a second opinion.
In science, one of the most critical things you can do is have someone else, completely separate from you, try to find the same thing using a different set of tools. It's how you make sure you're not just fooling yourself. It's how you know you're onto something real. And that is exactly what happened next.
So this independent researcher, Ivo Busko, he decides to take a crack at this puzzle himself. But, and this is key, he didn't use the same photos from the Palomar Project. Nope, he went to a totally different archive, looking at a different set of pictures to see if he could find the same strange things.
His search focused on plates from the Hamburg Observatory in Germany, all taken between 1954 and 1957. And you've got to remember, this is before Sputnik. He was using a different telescope, a different database called Applause. He was basically setting up a completely new, independent experiment. If he found the same kind of disappearing objects, this whole mystery was about to get a lot deeper.
So, how in the world do you search through millions of stars on 70-year-old glass plates for something that isn't there anymore? Well, you need a really clever method. You basically have to teach a computer how to play a cosmic game of spot the difference.
The strategy here is actually beautiful in its simplicity. First, you digitize 2 photos of the exact same patch of sky taken just about 30 minutes apart on the very same night. Then, you let a computer map out every single point of light it can find in both photos. And the final step? You just tell the computer, compare the 2 maps and show me anything at all that's in the first picture but is missing from the second. Those are your suspects.
And here we go. This is a perfect example of what the computer kicked out. On the left, you see that clear little point of light. And on the right, in a picture of the exact same spot just half an hour later, poof, it's gone. A perfect mismatch. The method was working. It was finding these ghosts in the glass.
So, after all that, how many did this new search turn up? Well, after sifting through all the data, tossing out things like tiny scratches on the glass or cosmic rays that can fake you out, the investigation landed on 35 solid candidates. 35 times that something appeared in the sky and then just vanished, back in the mid-1950s.
But this is where the real detective work starts. I mean, finding these things is one thing, but figuring out what they are, that's the whole ballgame. And the answer wasn't hidden in what they saw, but in how they saw it. The clue was hiding in the actual shape of the light itself.
Think about it like taking a picture at night. When an astronomer takes a long-exposure photo of a star, it's never a perfect, tiny point. Our atmosphere kind of blurs the light, and the telescope wobbles just a tiny bit, which smears it out. You get a slightly soft, fuzzy dot. But what if the light source wasn't on for the whole 30 minutes? What if it was just an incredibly short flash, lasting less than a second? Well, a flash that fast wouldn't have time to get blurred. It would punch a much sharper, much tighter point onto the photograph. In this chart right here, this is the smoking gun. It's basically a graph of how sharp every detected object is. All the normal stars are clumped together in that big band of black and blue dots. But look at the red dots. Those are our mystery objects. See how they're sitting way below the others? They are systematically, consistently sharper. And that tells us they're not stars at all.
Here's another way to see it. This graph shows what the light looks like if you slice through it. The blue lines are those gentle, spread-out curves of normal, fuzzy stars. But that red line, that's one of our transients. It is a sharp, tight spike. The light is way more concentrated, exactly what you'd expect from a super-fast flash.
So, this all means these aren't vanishing stars. The evidence is pointing to something else entirely. Sub-second optical glints from sunlight bouncing off flat, rotating surfaces. In plain English, they're seeing flashes of light from artificial, human-made objects spinning around in orbit.
And that conclusion, as straightforward as it sounds, is what turns this from a cool astronomy puzzle into a seriously profound historical mystery. Because we have to keep reminding ourselves when these pictures were taken.
Just look at this timeline. The photos were all taken between 1954 and early 1957. But humanity's space age, that didn't officially begin until October 4th, 1957, with the launch of Sputnik 1. Every single one of these photos and the glinting objects they captured were taken before that historic moment.
And that leaves us with one last, giant, unavoidable question. This new study, which confirmed the findings of the original VASCO project, gives us compelling evidence for man-made objects orbiting the Earth. But it found them at a time in history when, as far as the public record is concerned, there was absolutely nothing up there. So, if they weren't from any known space program, whose were they?